This is John Groves coming to you from my home studio. For today's Bible talk, I would like to start a new series I am calling Lessons from the Samaritans. You most likely have heard the story of the Good Samaritan and perhaps have heard some references to Samaria and the Samaritan people. Many people are aware that during Jesus' lifetime, there was a great deal of hostility between the Jews and the Samaritans. In this talk, we will review some of that history and set the groundwork for a closer examination of what we can learn from the Samaritans portrayed in the Bible. After the death of King Solomon, Israel was divided into two nations. The northern kingdom of Israel consisted of 10 tribes. The southern kingdom of Judah consisted of the tribes of Judah and Simeon. In time, the tribe of Judah absorbed the Simeonites, and the southern kingdom came to be known as Judah or Judea. There were times when the two kingdoms were at war with each other. They also formed alliances with their neighbors that put them in conflict with each other. Samaria was the capital city of the northern kingdom, and Jerusalem the capital of the southern kingdom. Samaria and the rest of the northern kingdom fell to the Assyrians after a long siege in 722 before the Common Era. The local inhabitants were dispersed throughout the Assyrian nation and essentially lost their identity. The area came to be inhabited by a mixture of northern kingdom survivors and other ethnic groups who settled there. The mixed population of the northern kingdom adopted the more primitive religious practices of their Israelite ancestors from the time of Joshua. Joshua was the patriarch who led the Israelites in their conquest of the Promised Land. The Promised Land was then divided among the 12 tribes of Israel. Several centuries later, the descendants of these mixed people came to be identified as Samaritans. 135 years after the fall of Samaria, Judah suffered a similar fate. In 587, before the Common Era, Jerusalem fell to the Babylonians, who had taken over from the Assyrians as the leading Middle East realm. Some of the survivors from the southern kingdom were sent into exile in Egypt, but a far greater number were exiled to Babylon. Through their exile, they maintained their cultural identity and religious beliefs. According to the prophet Jeremiah, the exile lasted 70 years, though scholars differ on the historical details. The end of their exile came about after the Persians defeated the Babylonians and created their own Middle East empire. Cyrus the Great decreed that the formerly exiled communities, and there were many, would be allowed to return to their respective homelands. The returning Jews found Jerusalem in ruins. They dutifully set about rebuilding their nation. Reportedly, the Samaritans offered to help the Jews rebuild Jerusalem and the temple, but they were refused. Thus, the Jews maintained their social, cultural, and religious independence. The Samaritans recognized only the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, as supplying the authoritative moral, legal, and religious guidance for their nation. One of the early instructions from the book of Deuteronomy was the assembly of the people on Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. The people on Mount Gerizim heard or recited the blessings the Lord provided. On Mount Ebal, the people heard or recited the Lord's curses. The idea here was to fix in their society's consciousness that certain ways of living lead to blessings and others lead to cursings. Also noteworthy here is the observation that Mount Gerizim was located in a fertile area, whereas Mount Ebal was rocky and barren. Until next time, we will continue our examination of the Samaritan lessons.